Welcome back, big ballers. It's your boy Manny James coming at you with another episode of the Fantasy Fumble. How the hell you folks doing today? Can't hear you. All right, sounds good. Joe, how the hell you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. We're wrapping up our rankings videos with quarterbacks that some of you may be interested in, but we know it's not quite as appealing as running backs and wide receivers. And that's why we got it at 15, just like the tight ends. Because after 15, you're kind of on your own.
Yes, sir. We'll get into that, but before that, a word from our sponsors.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, find land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. I'm going to kick things off today with the quarterback one, Josh Allen. It doesn't really matter who the wide receivers are. Josh Allen always finds his way to the top. He can do it all, and he's proven that over and over again. He set multiple records last year and is at the peak of his career. The top 10 offensive line will continue to provide plenty of protection for Allen, who also had 12 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yes, sir. And I know I've been seeing that across the board. Consensus number one is Josh Allen. But let me tell you why I have this flipped over a little bit. My number one quarterback for the season is going to be Lamar Jackson. Now, if you look at the numbers alone, Lamar Jackson was your MVP last year. He had over 430 points for the season last year, while Josh Allen finished at 379. Lamar Jackson passed for more passing yards. He had double the rushing yards, and he had over 20 more, or actually over 10 more touchdowns total. So he had an amazing season. Unfortunately, he just, I don't know, he lost some game. Well, actually, they had a pretty strong season, so I don't know why he didn't get the recognition. But at the end of the day, he just had a way better season. I expect him to come back with a chip on his shoulders to feel like he does. I know he mentioned that he felt like he was slighted a little bit for that MVP race. So I expect him to come back this year and just completely take off. I don't know if you've seen him this offseason, but he gained like I think he lost like an additional 10 pounds or something like that. So he's trying to get even faster.
Okay, I didn't know that. But that's who I have at number two, Lamar Jackson. And what you said is completely accurate. He might have something to say about that top spot because he finished as the number one last season with well over 5,000 yards, including over 900 rushing yards, and is always performing at the highest level. The team he had last year is basically the same as the one he has this year, so expect another incredible season. And they're another team with a top 10 offensive line. So he stays protected. It's why he runs so well. Same reason Josh Allen runs so well. He didn't have quite as many rushing touchdowns, but as you said, he had more total touchdowns. He was the better quarterback last year. He could easily do it again. But since it's typically Josh Allen, I gave him the slight edge this year and have Lamar at number two.
You know, and that's funny because I have Josh Allen at number two. Obviously, for a lot of the same reasons, right? These two guys had some amazing seasons last year. If you had one or the other, you were definitely a happy man or woman, whatever you call yourself. At the end of the day, those guys are going to should be the first two quarterbacks off the board. And you know, and my recommendation too, these are quarterbacks. If you want these guys, you got to grab them in the second round. Doesn't matter if you're in the beginning of it or the end, because if you don't grab it near the middle, it's going to be gone, right? So that's my recommendation. Those two guys are going to get you over the most fantasy points out of any one individual player on your whole team, and it's going to be like by 50 points at least. So, I mean, what is that? Like three points a game, 17 games?
Yeah, man, that's such a good point. And we've mentioned this before, but if you really do want one of those guys, sometimes you got to reach for him. Don't feel bad. If you want them on your team, you got to reach for them. Do it. They will make the difference.
Yeah.
Now at number 3, I've got Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels is another one that could find his way to the top spot, but he would have to outperform the amazing season he had last year to do it. And that's going to be tough because he finished his rookie season with almost 4,500 yards, including nearly 900 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. But one thing that we mentioned when we were discussing wide receivers, McLaurin needs to get on the field, or that could hinder all the production for Jaden Daniels. Of course, he's a mobile quarterback. He's going to run a lot, but that's his top guy. He needs him on the field.
I am a fan of Jaden Daniels. I'll touch up on him here in a little bit. Who I actually have at number 3 is Mr. Joe Burrow. So if you look at attempts per game last year for NFL quarterbacks, no one passed the ball more than Joe Burrow. He was passing it 27 times a game. Next highest guy was Patrick Mahomes at 24 times a game. You had Baker Mayfield at 24 times a game. So this guy is significantly he's only throwing 3 or 4 more passes per game, which doesn't seem like a lot, but actually over a 17 game season, it makes a difference. He had obviously close to 5,000 passing yards last year. He finished the season at 4,918. So if he's doing that kind of attempts this year, like we mentioned before in the last episode, the Bengals defense isn't going to be as good. So that means they're going to have to pass that ball a whole lot more because they're to keep the game close. So that's why I like Joe Burrow a lot this year. I don't typically like grabbing multiple quarterbacks earlier in the second round. But what I did this year, I looked at my tiers a little bit different. And how I'm looking at it now is Joe Burrow is a quarterback that I'm willing to grab at the beginning of the third round.
I totally agree with that, and I'm going to touch on it soon. But at number 4, I have Jalen Hurts. Another mobile quarterback, just like the first 3 I mentioned, that will continue to dominate on the football field. A well-deserving Super Bowl champion that has no intention of slowing down, with amazing pass catchers and the best offensive line in the NFL, which allowed him to score 14 rushing touchdowns. He will continue to utilize Barkley in the passing game too, and if his wide receivers can stay healthy, that will expand the opportunities for Hurts and keep him inside the top 5 without a problem.
I definitely agree with that. However, my number 4 is a little bit shuffled. Jaden Daniels. Obviously, love his performance last year. He was killing it, both offense, rushing and passing. I expect him to take a step forward, maybe affected a little bit by this Terry McLaurin business early on. But if somebody's selling high on, selling low on Jaden Daniels, like after a couple bad performances, make a move for him because he's going to bounce right back. But I definitely love him as a top 5 quarterback this year.
And at number 5, I have a gentleman that you just touched on, and I agreed with every single word, Joe Burrow. He's a quarterback that doesn't run at all, unlike the first 4 that I mentioned. But he has some of the best offensive weapons in the league with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, Marcus Gesicki, among others. The Bengals had more pass yards. Again, as you mentioned, they had more pass yards than any other team in the league with 4,918 yards. The offensive line has some work to do to keep Burrow protected, and that is something they need to do because he's been banged up in recent years. So they need to work on their offensive line. But but their defensive line is really bad too. So they are going to be on offense a lot, and they're going to be probably throwing the ball to stay in the game. If they're not blowing the teams out and it's a close game, they're going to be throwing the ball left and right. And Burrow's just going to light it up. I wouldn't be surprised at all, as you said, if he finishes in the top 3. But I have him at the 5 spot.
And Cincinnati's D-line isn't that bad. They obviously they have Shamar Stewart, the rookie, but they have to pay Trey Henderson to have a good D-line. If they don't pay him, obviously the D-line is going to be buns. So the longer they go without paying him, the more lopsided games are going to be for them. So again, translate to fantasy success on offense.
Most definitely. I have a feeling they're going to be in a lot of high-scoring games. Now, who's at your 5 spot?
I have Jalen Hurts. Again, Eagles fan, I have to temper my expectations, right? He had an amazing season last year. He still wasn't like a top 5 scoring quarterback last year, but I think obviously with, like I mentioned before, Saquon Barkley, we're going to probably tone down the run game a little bit this year and then go past more because the league's going to force us to win in a different way, right? Because that's just how the NFL trends and goes. So with that being said, you're still not going to stop the brotherly shove at that 1 yard line. It's not illegal. And Jalen Hurts is going to get his touchdowns. And 14, I'd say 10 touchdowns a season is pretty solid, expectation for him as far as rushing goes. And then expect more passing touchdowns because 18 last year was not very good, but he only threw them when he needed to throw them, right? So that I think expects to produce some more.
Now, who do you have at number 6?
Number 6, I do have Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, obviously, last year, people, are like, oh, he didn't have a great season. He didn't have a Mahomes-like season, but he still averaged 17 points a game, which is solid. He was actually, as I mentioned before, he had the second most pass attempts per game in the NFL last year. He didn't even have that many notable weapons. I mean, last year, Xavier Worthy was a rookie he had. Rashid Rice was out after the 4th game. He tore his ACL, right, because of his own QB in that overtime game. So they just, unfortunately, they were behind a lot of games and they've managed to win the close ones, but he wasn't really, lighting up the scoreboard like we're used to. So I expect this year, with the fact that they are not the returning champions, they're going to have to come back and really prove themselves again. And I expect Patrick Mahomes to take a step forward and actually have a Mahomes-like season.
I think he's going to take a step forward as well. I have him a few spots down. But at number 6 for me, I actually have Baker Mayfield. Right near the top for most passing yards was Baker. He finished with over 4,500 pass yards and close to 400 rushing yards. He has Evans and Godwin back for more, plus McMillan, who actually was, as we discussed earlier, under the radar, really productive. Igbuka and Cade Otton will both be involved too. So he's got a bunch of different pass options. So even if Godwin is not up to his full potential by week 1, he will come back and Baker's going to spread the ball out and everyone's going to be involved. And they also have a top 5 offensive line, and he likes to run the ball when he needs to. He's impressive when he runs the ball. It's funny because you don't expect it, but he's pretty good. So I have him at the 6th spot.
And Baker Mayfield has grit. I think that's what makes him a great quarterback.
Oh yeah.
And I agree with you. He will be an excellent quarterback this year. I have him at number 7. He played 17 games last year. Obviously over 4,500 yards, right? Like sounding like a broken record right now. The 41 touchdowns. I think if we even get 80% of that production back, you're still looking at a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So I'm also I wouldn't be taking them earlier than the 5th round, but there's a couple guys I would take in the 5th round, which included Mahomes as well.
Now, at number 7, I have Bo Nix. He had an amazing rookie year, and he's built more rapport with the team, and I think he's going to have an even better year this time around. He looked great as a passer and racked up 400 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, too. He and Cortland Sutton will be lighting it up, and Ingram's going to be heavily involved, and they have one of the best O-lines in the league that will get Bo to the next level. I know that 7th spot is a bold prediction, but he impressed me last year, and I expect him to take a big step forward this year.
Yeah, I like Bo. Definitely see what he does this year. Who's your number 8?
Number 8, I have Brock Purdy. I know he's way down on most people's lists, but he had a down year in 2024. But you got to remember, the 49ers banged up the entire season. Half the team was injured. They had their second and third string on the field for most of the season. And although Ayuk will be out for a while and Debo was traded, as I said earlier, Debo really only had like one good season when he was acting as wide receiver 1 and the running back 1. He was not just a gadget player. He was like pretty much the entire offense. I understand that they're gone and we're not sure when Ayuk's coming back. But Brock has a healthy George Kittle. Ricky Pearsall is going to step up. And of course, McCaffrey, if he's back to full health, all those passes to McCaffrey count. So I expect him to benefit greatly from Christian McCaffrey being back on the field and get him back to the guy we saw more of 2023 rather than 2024.
Yeah, and another guy, obviously, not that you forgot him, but he was under the radar last year. Juwan Jennings. Yeah, he had 975 receiving yards last year. Like, the guy had 113 targets. Like, he was the guy when those two went down, and even with Debo playing, Juwan Jennings was getting the most looks. Yeah. So, but obviously he didn't make my top 25. That's why I didn't talk about him. But it's nice,
but no, I mean he's on the same level as he's probably at this point you'd say better than Pearsall. So yeah, it's definitely worth mentioning him. He's a sleeper you could pick up. And I would advise that because, a lot of people are going to forget about him. It's funny how quickly people forget once the squad's back to full health. But Ayuk's down and Debo's gone. So, Juwan Jennings should be back on your radar.
Now, for my number 8, I had Mr. Kyler Murray, Arizona. He had almost 300 fantasy points last year, and that's considering he had a down year, but he still averaged close to 22 passing attempts per game. And he ended up finishing with, I'd say, one of his least productive fantasy seasons because he threw for 26 touchdowns, or he had 26 total touchdowns, including rushing. But he had 11 turnovers. So, that's not a really good turnover differential. I think he gets on the same page as Harrison this year. And of course, Trey McBride is going to be there as the target hog that he is. So I expect Kyler Murray to have another really nice 300-point season.
Okay. Now at number 9, I have Justin Fields. We've been talking about him. Maybe you and I are a little higher on him than most people are, but I really like him on the Jets. And I believe if any team, like in his past, he's been moved around a lot. If they just spent a little bit more time with him, that he could be a superstar. But, they move on quickly here in the NFL. But he's reunited with his Ohio teammate, as we mentioned earlier, Garrett Wilson, and will be running all over the field like a madman too. He had 5 rushing touchdowns in only 10 games last year. It doesn't hurt to have one of the best pass-catching running backs on your team too, with Breece Hall. He was heavily involved in the passing game. So if Justin Fields gets some trouble, and of course they're going to have some plays designed specifically for Breece, all those little shovel passes, and he's going to have Garrett Wilson working in his favor. I really like Justin Fields on the Jets, and I think he's going to have a big year.
I do like him too. However, for my number 9, I have a different Justin. I have Justin Herbert. Obviously, we saw what he did with Ladd McConkey last year. Justin Herbert, played a full 17-game season. I think he's really getting into himself. He has a good offensive line. Defense is questionable, but they went out and got him another receiver. So I expect him to at least take a step in the right direction for consistency. And if he's getting anything close to what he got last year, he was at 285 overall points last year. I mean, I could easily see him getting to 300 because last year wasn't even that great of a year for him compared to his rookie. So I expect that a little bit better performance coming out of him.
I do too. Now at number 10, I have Jared Goff. You know, I like Goff, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I had him outside of my top. I had him outside of my top 10, and I thought to myself, why? You know, believe in your gut and put him in my top 10. He's not a mobile quarterback, so he's not going to be at the tippy top, but he's an amazing player. He's clutch with possibly the best offense in the league and a top 3 offensive line. Let's take a look at the offense. You know, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, Sam Laporta, they're all going to be involved in the passing game. And we hope to see John Morton getting everyone involved, as we've been discussing. You know, we want to see the ball spread around, but we want to see the studs involved a little bit more in the offense, and I think he's going to do that. And Goff outperforms expectations every season, and I just have a feeling he's going to do it again.
Oh, yeah. Big fan of Goff. However, for my number
10.
Okay. Although for my number 10, I actually have CJ Stroud. I've seen him ranked a lot later in rankings, right? Because he had a bad year or injured year, right? Everyone was injured on his team. So Houston went out and got a bunch of receivers, right? They got Jaden Higgins. You know, they got a couple guys in there, another rookie. And then, of course, they have Nico Collins coming back. So I expect him to have another nice slow progression, play more than, you know, get a little bit more consistency in there because although he only was +8 in his turnover differential, there was a lot of things going against him all year long. So I don't expect him to have nearly half the, you know, hardships that he did last year when hopefully he doesn't in regards to injuries.
I just want to talk about him for a second because he's just outside of my top 15 and we're stopping at 15. I actually have him ranked at 16. I think all those points you made are completely valid. He's going to have a bounce back year for sure. Now at number 11, I have Patrick Mahomes. We watched him kind of fall off last year, but he still won the division and made it to another Super Bowl. So, you know, falling off, what's that mean for Patrick Mahomes? The last couple years haven't even been bad. It's just that the numbers aren't as high as we want them to be. He's still averaging about 4,000 passing yards. And of course, we want that number to be 5,000 because we've seen that so many times. The team is a little banged up, but like Josh Allen, that doesn't even really matter. Mahomes will perform. He always finds a way. So even with some of his offense injured, he's been through that dozens of times. No big deal. And that's why I have him at 11. Yeah, he's not quite the guy he was in previous seasons, but he's still a total stud.
I can see that. Now for my number 11, I actually have Jared Goff. Obviously only one spot later than you. I'm very bullish on him. Much like yourself too. I went through a lot of, you know, back and forth. And when I looked at the numbers, you know, the average season for Jared Goff since he's been to Detroit, which has already been 3 seasons playing with Detroit. This is his 4th. He has played 17 games. So all 17 games, all 3 seasons, he averages over 4,200 passing yards per season and 30 passing touchdowns for that season as well. If you look at it, he had like 32, 37, 31 in touchdowns and over 4,200 yards every time. So he's the model consistency. He has all his weapons coming back. Obviously, we keep talking about a new offensive coordinator. I think that Jared Goff is the type that can adjust. He's a smart guy, so I don't think he's going to have that hard of a time to learn this offense.
For sure. All good points, man. Like, he's durable as hell. 17 games for the last 3 seasons. Very, very good point. And over 4,000 yards, no problem. And he was good before he was on the Lions too. Now, at number 12, I have Kyler Murray. And for him, I think the top 10 is very attainable. Although he was frustrating to watch, he actually played pretty well last year, and he also had 5 rushing touchdowns. When this team is healthy, they're an absolute force. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, and James Conner, they'll all be fed this season. But we need to see more action in the red zone for all of them, and that will obviously make Kyler Murray more successful. That was the biggest hurdle for the Cardinals. Like, they just had a hard time finding the end zone consistently, and it was the studs that suffered. But they're a really good team, and I have a strong feeling they're going to get that all sorted out.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. My number 12, I do have Bo Nix. Obviously, had a great season last year. He averaged 18.5 points per game, 22 passing attempts per game, which is actually really good. He ended up finishing with over 3,700 yards passing. The biggest thing that people don't realize, obviously, when Bo Nix came to Denver last year as a rookie, he was an older rookie. I think he was like, was he like 27, 28 or something like that?
I'm not sure, but I know that they talked about it a few times. Yeah.
So that obviously showed you that the guy was mature, because his numbers in Oregon were really solid, really steady. And so Sean Payne already knew he was getting a really mature and experienced quarterback. So I expect Bo Nix to continue much of that, right? A lot new, an extra weapon here in the offseason, new running back, right? Upgrade. So I expect him to have a better season for sure.
Oh, yeah. I like all that. Now at 13, I have Jordan Love. He struggled last year, but the Packers are a well-rounded team. They have capable wide receivers that can go off on any given week. He spreads the ball out a lot. Josh Jacobs is a total beast that will be catching passes too. I see this being a big bounce-back year for Jordan Love. We've seen what he can do. He did struggle, yeah, but he's going to be just fine. And I think we're going to see one of the best Jordan Loves we've seen this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely bullish on him. I don't have him for number 13. However, he is close. Right now for number 13, I have Brock Purdy. Obviously, a few spots later than you. Bad offensive year last year as far as injuries are concerned. And his options only got less in the offseason, right? Like, they didn't add a single pass catcher to him. Right. So he, as a matter of fact, he lost one more, right? Debo got traded. So I expect him to be in a similar position, which was obviously pretty solid overall. But I expect him to be feeding a lot of those dump passes to McCaffrey. So, I mean, when McCaffrey was healthy, he was taking a bunch of those for touchdowns, at least 5 a game. So we'll see how that works out for him this year. But he's not going to be anything earlier than a 7th or 8th round pickup for me, as far as quarterbacks are concerned.
For sure. I like those. Good points. And I guess it could be, you could look at it either way as far as the pass catchers. Like, you lose some of the veterans, but these young dudes are going to step up. It's tough to call right now. Now at 14, I have Caleb Williams. With Ben Johnson coming over from the Lions, we could see a significant increase in production for this entire team. The way DJ Moore was used the last couple of years is so frustrating, and he's an amazing wide receiver, and so is Rome Odunze. And of course, DeAndre Swift is heavily involved in the passing game too. Finding the end zone was difficult for the whole team. It's same issues as we were talking about with some of these other studs, is they need to get in the end zone. But I think that Caleb Williams and DJ Moore, they're a great combo, and they're going to be really, really playing at the top level this year. And I'm eager to see what Ben Johnson can cook up for these guys. That'll be cool to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like Caleb this year for sure. I don't have him that high, but only a couple spots back. Actually, he didn't make my top 15, unfortunately. It was very hard. There's a couple other guys that edged him out, but I think the difference is CJ Stroud hit my top. Top 15.
He's just outside of mine. Yeah.
But so far we've been like very, very close. And folks, keep in mind we don't show each other these beforehand. We just kind of wing it. do the show and wing it. So
Yeah,
all
it's
this
fun.
stuff is coming up as we discuss it. Which brings my number 14 guy, which I think was your number 13. That's Jordan Love.
Cool.
Obviously, a lot of weapons. They added a new one, Marcus Golden, right? Or is it Matthew Golden, the wide receiver? He's
I don't know.
he,
It's golden. I know that.
yeah, I think it's Matthew. But he got drafted. Obviously, Jaden Reed's there. They lost Christian Watson for half the season because of that ACL he took late in the season. ACL injury. So now it's going to be Romeo Dubes and and Jaden Reed. So I think that either way they're going to get them all involved. They have Josh Jacobs. Maybe they'll give him a few more dump passes this year. But
They
overall,
got Tucker Kraft too. That he'll be heavily involved.
hopefully he gets more than 4 looks a game. Right,
Yeah,
that'd be
he
nice.
should be. I shouldn't say he will be. He should be heavily involved. We'll see.
But yeah, I like Jordan this year. He should be pretty solid.
Now, finishing my list at the 15 spot, I have Justin Herbert. He took a step back over the last couple of years compared to his first 3 seasons in the NFL, but he's also been playing through injuries. If he can come into this season healthy, we could see the guy we know and love from back a few years ago. And he lost Keenan, but he got a young lad that showed up in a big way to fill those shoes. So people forget that Herbert can run the ball too, and the Chargers have a great offensive line. He's just been struggling mostly because he's been banged up. If he can come back at full health with, healthy wide receivers, because you also got to remember how often Keenan was banged up. So he was like at the peak of his game while Keenan was at the peak of his game. And then they both went through some injuries and then he lost Keenan. But again, he's got a strong receiving core again and just a capable team all around on offense and defense. And I think he's going to have a big year.
And it's funny you say that, they were at the peak of their game at the same time because obviously Keenan Allen being in the league 8-9 years, you're talking about a guy like they went off like that. I think it was Herbert's second or third year.
Yeah.
So now Herbert's been in 5 years, and I'm a big fan of him. I think he's definitely going to, as long as they give him the pass catchers, he should be good. But being healthy is going to be a big factor as well. They really need him to. He played 17 games, but he got banged up in a few.
Yeah.
They need to work on that pass protection.
And lad's got to stay healthy too.
Now, for my final number 15 quarterback, we mentioned him earlier, as I said here, but I have Justin Fields. He only played 10 games last year for Pitt, obviously not to his choosing, and he was playing them exactly how he needed to. He wasn't making dumb decisions. He was running plays that were called, and then for some reason, Pittsburgh decided that it would be a better idea to just bench him and let Russell Wilson air it out.
And they're 4-2 when they did that.
They're 4-2, and then it went all downhill from then. So you never really got to see what Justin Fields can do, right? I think if people got to see what he can actually do on a consistent basis, and that's like play his game, then you would actually see how good of a quarterback he is, right? Because coming out of Ohio State, I mean, the guy was a star in Ohio State, and it wasn't just for his arm. It was for his, intelligence, his running ability. So I think that New York Jets are going to unlock that a little bit in him, run that West Coast offense. And, he didn't – last year he had over 300 rushing yards in 10 games. That's 30 yards a game. That's not anything crazy. But that's playing a restrained role with them running the ball like 50 times a game. Never really got a chance to show what he's got. He did the perfect job last year being a game manager, right, doing exactly what Pittsburgh asked for him, but they never let him uncork it, right? Let it go and really see what's out there. So I think now he has the opportunity to do that. Garrett Wilson is an excellent receiver. He's very quarterback friendly. And hopefully the offensive game plan kind of plays off the strengths, which is going to be a lot of, quarterback bootlegs and obviously running the ball through Brees primarily, right? So it opens up the passing lane. So if they can do that, I think Justin Fields would be a nice fantasy asset because he might give you some rushing points there as well.
Oh, yeah. Totally agree with that. And I didn't like how the Steelers moved on, when he was doing really well, 4-2. And I'm glad that honestly that we don't really have Pickens anymore either, because he wasn't contributing as much as he should have been. But not the best attitude. But I think Justin Fields has a great attitude, and like you said, if teams would just take a little bit more time with him, I think he could totally be a superstar. The Bears, I don't think, spend enough time with him either. So I like what we see in New York, and I really hope they keep him and he can thrive.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that about wraps up our show here. Again, we appreciate you guys coming by. This was everything. We already decided that we're going to keep the content going. Obviously, if there's preseason stuff going on, Joe and I want to do some fantasy drafts or mock drafts in front of you guys. Kind of break it down so we kind of start establishing some trends, some strategies for the draft, and see how we could maximize your output.
Oh yeah, we're going to be doing a mock draft next week, and we'll see what happens when we go with our strategy of being heavy on the running backs in the first few rounds.
Yeah, I probably used, and if I'm being honest, I probably was heavier over the previous years on running back. I remember I would take like 3 or 4 running backs in the first 4 or 5 rounds. Like, that's how crazy. And then those teams ended up being the most lopsided. So obviously it's a lot less bullish than maybe it used to be. And
like you said, you've been, gunning for the top tier quarterback. So, you can get 2 solid running backs, solid wide receiver, and a top tier quarterback in the first 4 rounds. That's a really good way to start.
That's your foundation, fellas. You're looking at 25, 30 points per player. That's 100 points overall you can expect every week out from those guys.
That's a great way to look at it, for sure.
All right, but appreciate you guys. We'll see you here next week, same time, same place. And you scallywags better keep your nose clean, or I'm coming after you, all right?